My name is Leanne. I work as an interpreter and have always been busy with my job. However, 6 months ago, I married Jacob, whom I had known since our college days when we were in the same club. Jacob and I dated during college, but once we graduated and started our careers, we were both so swamped with work we didn't have time for romance. That's why we decided to part ways. However, about a year ago, some of us from our college club decided to catch up and have dinner. That's when I ran into Jacob again. Friends around us suggested, now that you both have settled careers, why not get back together? So, we did. It wasn't a messy breakup, and I never grew to dislike Jacob, so 6 months after getting back together, we got married. Although our recent courtship was brief, after dating for 3 years during college, it felt right. But it turned out to be a mistake. Since the days when we were dating in college, his personality has changed a bit. Back in our college days, he used to be kind to both women and men, but when we met again, he had become cold towards women. Even when we went out to eat, during our college years he would occasionally say, "I got this." Yet, after we reconnected, he never offered to pay once. I wouldn't mind just that, as I believe I should pay my own part, but he said something really awful. You know, I really dislike women who assume they'll get treated just because they're female. Like those who use the restroom right before the check arrives, expecting the guy to cover the bill while they're gone. He said something like that. Moreover, it happened when I had finished eating and said, "I'm going to the restroom." I never expected him to foot the bill, nor did I ever hint at it. It made me mad to think he'd assume that about me. So, I promptly took out my wallet, handed him money for my share, and said, "Well, I really do need to go to the restroom now." His next remark was, "You could have handed over the money more discreetly. It's embarrassing for others to see you pay, isn't it?" I was taken aback when he suggested that a girl wanting to go to the restroom was just doing so because she wanted a guy to pick up the check. And on top of that, to complain about how money is handed over even when he's not paying. I certainly didn't expect to be told something like that, and without thinking, I blurted out, "Excuse me." Embarrassed by a woman paying. Yet, you're clear about never treating. Isn't that contradictory? It's unfair of you to assume I expect you to cover my bill. And now you're nitpicking about the way I hand you money. When I said that, he quickly looked around, conscious of the eyes on us, and stammered, I'm sorry." It seems he's become more conscious of others' opinions than before. Although Jacob and I had our disagreements, they weren't significant enough to call it quits, so we went ahead and got married. But the real shocker was his parents. They seemed much younger than my parents. Apparently, Jacob's mother got pregnant with him at 18. I learned they had a shotgun wedding, but eventually she divorced Jacob's real father. After Jacob graduated from college, she remarried. "Hey, Leanne, I heard you're working. How much do you earn?" "Enough to support us along with Jacob." When Jacob took me to his parents' home, stating, "Now that we're married, I'd like you to formally meet my parents," his mother abruptly brought that up. Confused, I asked, "Support?" Jacob, sitting next to me, gave a sheepish smile. Then he said, "Mom, I haven't discussed that with Leanne yet, but Leanne earns quite well, so she can help support you and Dad." I was floored by his statement. Certainly, I married Jacob. Someday, if Jacob's parents fall ill, I might help care for them. But now being told to support them, what are they expecting from me? From what I've seen, both my mother-in-law and father-in-law look young and healthy. So, why am I expected to support these healthy people? Thanks, Leanne. Both my husband and I are counting on you, okay? So, please. My mother-in-law told me. I asked in confusion, "What do you mean by support?" Jacob hurriedly replied, "I'll explain later." But I felt I needed to know right then. What do you mean by support? Are you talking about financially supporting both of you? Both of you seem young and probably have jobs, right? Why is this topic even coming up? Looking troubled, my mother-in-law placed her hand on her cheek. "After all, you're Jacob's wife, right? That means you have to take care of your in-laws. I had Jacob when I was young and went through a lot. So, unlike others, I believe I've earned an early break. That's why my husband quit his job, because of jealousy that I was getting money from Jacob daily. Now we can't make ends meet without support." She wasn't joking. She genuinely wanted me to support them. I sighed deeply. While it's true that I married Jacob, we have our own family to think about. I'd like to have children. I can't prioritize you over our future children. If we have extra money, it'll go into saving for our own house and our children's future. Regardless of how hard you worked in the past, I'm not obligated to support you." Hearing my firm stance, my mother-in-law looked like she was about to cry. I suspected it was an act, but Jacob shouted, "Hey, don't hurt my mom's feelings." Feeling the conversation wouldn't progress, I said, "Anyways, I won't be supporting you," and decided to head home. When I got home, Jacob blamed me. "Why would you say such harsh things to my mom? She's my mom." "Jacob, you never mentioned before our marriage that you were giving money to your mother. Remember, I told you if you were sending money home, you should tell me first. I wanted to be clear about our finances." "Well, yeah, but I can't believe you kept sending money to your mother as secret and then asked me to help support your mom and dad. Does that mean you want me to pitch in too? Making a decision like that without consulting me is crazy. You never told me anything about this." Jacob looked guilty and uncomfortable. "If I had told you, would you have been okay with it?" he asked. "If you had been upfront, do you think I would have agreed? I'm extremely angry at you for not telling me. But I didn't do anything wrong." It's amazing that he can say he did nothing wrong. I firmly believe Jacob's at fault, and I'm also upset at the in-laws, thinking their son and daughter-in-law are obligated to support them. Apparently, my anger was clear because after that incident, both Jacob and my mother-in-law stopped mentioning any financial support. Then one day, my mother-in-law called me. "Hello, Leanne. We haven't had a proper chance to talk, have we? I was thinking it might be nice to go on a trip together to get to know each other better. Given your work as an interpreter, perhaps an overseas trip. Considering that turning down the offer might further strain our relations, I agreed to the trip." A few days before the trip, Jacob told me, "Mom asked me to handle everything, but I think you're better at managing things." He handed me the necessary travel documents. Then, on the day of the trip, we were supposed to meet at the airport by 9 a.m. because Jacob was picking up his parents by car. I offered to go with him, but we figured 4 suitcases wouldn't fit in the car, so I decided against it. Just as I was getting ready to leave the house, I received a call from my mother-in-law as if she had been waiting for the perfect timing. I figured she was probably on her way to the airport by car, but then I heard a loud laughter from her. "How does it feel, Leanne, to be the only one left behind in the States?" "Excuse me." I had no clue what she was talking about. Did she mean I couldn't go to the airport with them? No, that doesn't make sense. She would have said I was left at home, not in the States. "Sorry. What do you mean by left behind in the States?" It seems you haven't grasped the situation. We're already at the airport. We were actually supposed to leave at 8 a.m. We'll enjoy our trip to Australia without you." "What?" I rummaged through my belongings and then spoke to her. "Well, I have the passports with me. It's not odd for you to have your passport since you're not joining us. We've entrusted ours to Jacob so we won't lose them. Actually, Jacob handed them over to me a few days ago saying I should manage them. I currently have all 4 passports including mine." "What?" "That's right. A few days before the trip, Jacob handed me the passports for his parents and himself, thinking I'd be better at managing them. Reluctantly, I accepted them. So now, I have all 4 of our passports. It would be impossible for them to go on their overseas trip without me. But that's not what I was concerned about at the moment. Were you planning to leave me behind and enjoy the trip to Australia with just you, the father-in-law, and Jacob?" When I calmly asked her this, my mother-in-law hesitated for a bit, then blurted, "Yes. So what? You've been such a horrible wife, not supporting me and my husband. I thought I'd teach you a lesson. Now that you know you're disliked, I'll just pretend you learned your lesson. So hurry up and get to the airport." It seems she didn't think she did anything wrong. With a smile, I replied, "No, I don't want to. I won't be coming to the airport." I then hung up, took my bags, and headed to a nearby motel. Apparently, when Jacob realized I wasn't coming, he texted me saying, "Why aren't you coming to the airport?" I heard from my mom. It seems she got the meeting time wrong. Don't sulk and act childish. It was my mom who planned this trip so you could bond with the family. Typical of her to not admit her wrongdoing. Feeling exasperated, I contacted a lawyer I had consulted a few times before. 3 hours later, I received a frantic text from Jacob. "Why aren't you home? Where the heck are you?" Not wanting to engage, I simply replied, "Living room table." Moments later, he texted, "Why is there a divorce paper on the table?" I chose not to respond after that. I finished my chat with the lawyer and then headed to a real estate office to look for a place to live alone. With constant calls from my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and Jacob, I simply texted Jacob, "Why don't you ask your mom the truth?" If Jacob confronted her, I was sure she would confess her plan. The next day, when I returned home, my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and Jacob were there with dejected faces. Jacob said, "I talked to my mom. She admitted she planned to deceive you and leave you behind in the States." Since Jacob handed all the passports to me, the person who was supposed to be left behind, it's likely he wasn't involved in this scheme. Seeing my father-in-law sitting cross-legged with my mother-in-law, I assumed he knew about the plan. But this time, it's something my mom did on her own. I'm not involved in the plan at all. Please, don't divorce me. Looking around the room, I found the divorce papers I'd left on the living room table in the trash. "You really think I decided to divorce just because of what your mom did?" Saying that, I took out a spare set of divorce papers from my bag and handed them to Jacob. "What else did you think happened? I didn't do anything." "You sure have nerve. Teaming up with your father to have affairs." Wah. I pulled out documents from my bag and spread them out on the table. Upon hearing me, my mother-in-law quickly looked at my father-in-law, then leaned in to inspect the documents. Among them were screenshots of text messages where Jacob and my father-in-law were coordinating alibis to hide their affairs. There were also pictures of Jacob and my father-in-law, each with different women, seemingly on dates. 2 months ago, I'd hired a private investigator to dig up their affairs. Regarding the text screenshots, I found them because Jacob had left his messaging app logged in on our shared computer. It's pretty careless of him to use our shared PC to discuss their infidelities. While my mother-in-law's face grew redder and redder looking at the photos, Jacob and my father-in-law turned pale. Jacob was an honest man in college, but I think he has changed ever since my mother-in-law remarried. Perhaps he's been influenced by the arrival of the current father-in-law. To be precise, he probably started to take women for granted. I've heard him express such sentiments, suggesting that women are somehow lesser, multiple times in our daily life. Frankly, I want nothing more to do with this messed up family. If you've been cheating, then it's only natural that I'd want a divorce. Oh, and I'll be seeking damages from you and your mistress. Expect to get the notice by tomorrow. Come on, it's just an affair. All men cheat. You should be grateful I married you and should put up with the affair. If it's no big deal, then why do you think there are damages for it? It's wrong, hence you'll be penalized. How can you say all men cheat? I'd like an apology on behalf of all faithful men out there. But I don't want a divorce. Is it because of my salary? Just to let you know, the money I earned before marriage is mine, not ours. We hardly have any shared assets. Don't count on getting anything. I'm not interested in supporting a man like you or your parents. At that point, my mother-in-law, shouting, lunged at my father-in-law. She was furious at discovering his infidelity. She also yelled at Jacob for being part of it. Jacob, terrified of being yelled at by his mother, started crying. What a pathetic bunch of adults. I quickly packed up my documents and made my exit. No way I wanted to get caught up in that mess. Since the affair came to light, I had already packed my important belongings and stored them elsewhere, with clothes packed in a suitcase, ready to go. So, I never have to return to that house again. Jacob probably didn't even realize I had moved my stuff since he never entered my room. Thanks to that, I could leave swiftly. Later on, he somehow managed to pay the damages in one go. The parents of Jacob's mistress ended up paying for her. Jacob's mistress turned out to be a new hire at his workplace, and I've heard he got fired for breaking company policy. My mother-in-law wanted to divorce my father-in-law, but he didn't seem to agree. And since my mother-in-law doesn't work, she can't even afford a lawyer. Unemployed Jacob now seems to live in an uneasy truce with his parents. As the story spread among my college friends, rumors started to circulate. It seems like Jacob has even been cut off by his friends. As for me, my old buddies from college are setting me up on a blind date, so I'm